What's good, YouTube? I'm Robert with the Crosscut Creations channel. Today, I just realized that I've been so busy turning pens and seam rippers and other small things for craft shows and other things that I forgot to make myself a nice carry pen that I can show off when I'm at work or, just out and about. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take the other half of the blank that I used in another project. This was the other half of the blank of the bolt action pen that I turned for one of my friends for Christmas. He was actually the best man in my wedding. I'm going to use the other half of this blank to turn a Wall Street 2 pen, and that'll be my new personal carry pen. So hopefully it'll turn real nice, and it'll become a nice talking point when I show it off. So if you want to see how I make this thing, come along and hang out for a little bit. Okay, now we're at the point where we need to measure for our tube and make a mark. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our kit here and we're going to take the tube out. We're going to line up our blank. I think we'll make this the top end maybe. So we'll flip this around. I'll line this up. Let's grab a Sharpie marker. We'll make a mark where to drill, and then we'll take this over to the drill press and drill this out. One thing to note, before we take this to the drill press, I marked a line here. That's going to go on the bandsaw and get cut off, and then we can take it to the drill press so we can drill the hole for our tube. I'm putting this blank on a Wall Street 2 kit, so what I've done is I've taken a 27/64 inch drill bit and I've put it in my drill press, and that's what we're going to use to drill the hole out for this blank. There's some really nice curls. I'm gonna go ahead and finish drilling that off camera. The wood that you're seeing is wormy sycamore, and the blank is, the other part of the blank is alumilite. We're at the point where we're ready to insert our tube into our blank. Before we do that, we wanna make sure that this tube right here is nice and scuffed up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take some old sandpaper right here, and I'm just gonna take my hand and I'm gonna rough up the surface a little bit here. This allows the glue to have something to stick to and adhere to, so the pen is nice and so the tube is nice and in the blank. So you can see that there, that we've got some nice scratches on the tube now. Now that we've done that, we can set that aside for a second. We're done with our sandpaper. Now, because this is a hybrid blank, meaning it's multiple materials, it has wood and alumilite. What we're gonna do is, if it was just wood, I would use a medium CA to put the tube into the blank. However, because it is a hybrid blank, because there's any alumilite, anything other than wood at all, I'm going to use a 2-part epoxy. So I'm going to put it in this cup. I'm going to mix it up, and we will get this show on the road. I'm just doing the one blank, so I don't need a whole lot of epoxy. I just need enough to glue in the one tube. I'm going to cap off my epoxy. I'm going to take my makeshift stir stick here. I'm going to stir this epoxy up a little bit. give it some time to set up. I am using a 15-minute epoxy that I purchased from the Classic Nib. I was looking for a larger quantity of epoxy, and Niels and Debbie reached out and said that they had this product that was comparable to what I was using. And what I was using before was not a terrible product, and it wasn't even a bad product. I would recommend it. My only issue was the thing that I was using before wasn't enough. It was there wasn't enough quantity in there. So I went to the bigger bottles, and it's lasted me quite a while. So now that we have our epoxy on our blank, we're going to set the cup aside, and we're going to take our blank and we're going to insert our tube into here. And I'm just going to twist this as it goes into the blank. And once I get towards the end, I'm going to take this little tool here and I'm just going to flush it up. By twisting the tube into the blank, that allows the epoxy to have a little better grip on the tube in the blank. So this way I have this here where the tube is in. Here's the other end. We'll trim that up later after the glue sets up. So we'll come back after the glue sets up, and we'll do some more prep on this at that point. We are now ready to barrel trim. So all that means is I'm going to make the blank here flush with the tube. So I'm basically going to cut away any extra material that is from here to the tube, which you can't see the tube right now because it's in there. But what we're going to do is we're just going to remove a little bit of material so the tube is flush with the end of this blank. I take very light passes and very light taps just to make sure I'm not gouging. I still have a little bit more to go on this blank. We'll finish that up and then we'll put it on the lathe. I've mounted my blank on my lathe, so now I'm going to go ahead and start turning. I will be using a square carbide tool to start and to rough this to get it round, and then once I feel like it's round enough, I like to move to a circle carbide cutter as a finishing sort of tool. And that's a personal preference thing. There's nothing that says you have to do it that way. It's just what I've gotten used to doing, and it's what I've seen work for me. So if it works for you, that's great. Find out what works for you and go with it. I typically turn my pens as fast as I can. I usually crank this thing up pretty good. So I'll stop talking and get turning. Here's where we're at. We're not quite round yet, but we're getting pretty close. So I'm going to switch over to the round carbide tool and start getting this closer to its final diameter. You can see we still have a little bit of ways to go till we get to the bushings here, and on this end as well. You can see it better on this end. But I'm going to switch to the round carbide cutter and we will continue to turn. So here's our round tool and we'll keep going. Right here, I'm just checking where I'm at on the bushings. So far, this has turned pretty nicely. I think I can come down on this end just a little bit. I think I'm pretty close here, so I'm not going to touch this end, but I might clean this end up just a little bit. So we'll go ahead and do that and then continue on. I love how this blank is turning out so far. Okay, after checking this blank, I really like how this is coming out. So I think what I'm going to do at this point, since we're pretty close here on the bushings on either end, I think I'm going to stop with the tooling and I'm going to move to sanding. The way I sand these blanks when they're a hybrid blank, this Alumilite and wood hybrid blank, I go ahead and do a dry sand because there's wood, and I go through the grits on that, and then because it's also Alumilite, immediately after I dry sand I wet sand with MicroMesh because there's Alumilite. At the recommendation of Fred Wisson, who I got this blank from, he recommended a CA finish. So after I go through those two sanding processes, the dry sand and then the wet sand with MicroMesh, I'm going to put a CA finish on this blank. After I put a CA finish on this blank, I will MicroMesh again, and that should be the final sanding. The one thing I did forget to mention when finishing, first we're going to dry sand, which I mentioned. After we dry sand, we're going to wet sand with MicroMesh, which I also mentioned. But after we MicroMesh, I'm going to go ahead and clean the blank with denatured alcohol to get any of the oils off your skin. That just cleans the blank, and that's especially for the wood part. So dry sand, wet sand, denatured alcohol, CA finish, and then MicroMesh one more time. After we MicroMesh for the second time, we're going to put some Hut Ultra Gloss polish on the blank, and then we'll be ready to assemble this pen. So let's go ahead and get that process started. I'm getting ready to start the sanding process. I'm going to dry sand with 220, 400, 1000, and 2000 grits. I use those grits mainly because that's the sandpaper I have. I've also found that it works for me, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to make you sit through all of that, but I'll go ahead and get started, and I'll catch you in a little bit. Here's a look at the blank after the first dry sand. I think it's shaping out really nicely, and I think it looks really good right now. At this point, I'm going to turn the lathe on and I'm going to MicroMesh. In an earlier video, I misspoke. I said that the MicroMesh pads go from 1500. No, I said they went from 1200 to 12,000. They don't go from 1200 to 12,000. They go from 1500 to 12,000. Those are the grits of the pads, and that just smooths out the surface of the blank. It also takes out any of the fine scratches in the Alumilite or the acrylic material that you're turning. Excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the lathe. I will start the MicroMesh process, the wet sanding, and again, I won't make you sit through all of that, but I'll start on that and we'll be back in just a short minute. Here we have the blank after MicroMesh. Here's what it looks like. I'm really happy with the way this is shaping out. I'm really excited to get a CA finish on here. But before we can do that, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to clean the blank with some denatured alcohol. And in order to put my CA finish on, some of you experienced pen turners might notice that I put my nonstick bushings on the outsides. I started doing that because I've gotten in a bad habit of tightening my tailstock down way too hard, and then my mandrel gets all weird and wacky, and I end up bending the mandrels, and the bushings get smashed. So I'm trying to use my nonstick bushings to kind of combat some of that. So what I do is I leave the standard bushings on, and I put some paste wax on the bushing, on the regular bushings, and that seems to allow the blank to not stick to the bushings, and I haven't had any issues with that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put some paste wax on the bushings and clean the blank with some denatured alcohol. Here's a quick peek of the blank. I think it looks absolutely great at this point. This is after I've put paste wax on the bushings, and I've also put some denatured alcohol to clean the blank on the blank itself. Once you put the denatured alcohol on the blank, you don't want to touch the blank, because that way you don't want to get any of the oils or anything from your skin or your fingers onto the blank. So at this point, I am ready to put my CA finish on this pen. I typically do 5 coats of thin CA and 3 coats of medium CA. I start with the 5 thin coats, then I progress to the 3 medium coats. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And I won't make you sit through that, but I'll get started on that, and we'll meet back up in a little bit. I just got done putting the 3rd coat of medium CA on the blank. I think this is looking really nice. It's starting to shine pretty nice. I still have to go through the MicroMesh process, but what you just saw, if you saw a light mist, I sprayed some activator for the CA on the blank. I do that only after the final coat, and I make sure I hold the can back probably 12 inches or so. It's a very light coating. It's not super direct. So now at this point, all we have to do is MicroMesh one more time, put some polish on this thing, and it'll be ready for assembly. We are at the point where we can now MicroMesh one more time. This will be the 2nd MicroMesh round, and it'll be the final MicroMesh round. The reason I'm MicroMeshing this time is just to flatten out and smooth out the CA to give it a nice flat surface and a great shine. So this MicroMesh process, the 2nd MicroMesh, will go much quicker than the 1st. But again, I won't make you watch through all of that, but that's what we're getting ready to do. So here we go. We now have a blank that is CA finished and MicroMeshed. We have a nice smooth surface. So now all we have left to do is put some polish on it, and we will be set to take this thing off the lathe and put it into a kit. We're going to use some Hut Ultra Gloss polish, and we'll probably apply it twice. We'll apply it once, buff it out, apply it again, buff it out again, and call it a day. All right, let's see how she looks. Oh, that looks great. I don't know if the camera's picking this up or not, but this blank looks absolutely stunning in person. I love the way this looks. I cannot wait to get this put into a kit. So let's go ahead and take this off the lathe and get this pressed into a Wall Street 2 kit. Okay, we have our kit from Woodcraft here. This is a Wall Street 2 kit. It's a Wall Street 2 kit chrome. I'm going to take my components out here real quick. Here's our blank that we're working with, that we're going to press into this kit. We have the ink refill, we have the cap, we have the front piece, the nib, we have our transmission, and we have, lastly in here, if I can grab it, we have a small spring. Now, first thing we need to do is we need to take the cap out. We take the cap out, and I look at my blank and I decide where I want to put my cap. And I really like this blank. I really honestly can't see a bad spot for this clip. So I think what I'm gonna do, man, I don't know. I think I'm gonna put the clip somewhere right around here. So I want it to sit something like this. So now that I have it started, I'm gonna put this in my pen press, and I need to adjust the pen press just a tad. There we go. I'm gonna put a piece of cardboard in there just so we don't screw anything up. We're gonna press the cap into this pen. And if we get a close-up there, you can see I have a really nice fit. I'm really happy with that. Now, the rest of this pen is super easy. So what we do is we take this nib out, take the refill. We're gonna remove this little cover thingy there. We're gonna put the spring on the cap, and there's, let's see, yeah, it's gonna go this way. And then we're going to put the refill in the cap. Once we put the refill in the cap, I'm going to thread the transmission on. There we go. We've got it extended. I'm going to test this transmission a couple times, and that seems pretty good. So now all we have to do is put our top half of our pen onto our bottom half, and we have a completely functional, fully put together, fully finished pen. I really like how this one came out. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. This pen was a lot of fun. Here it is one more time up close. Again, this was a hybrid blank from Fred Wisson over at P-Town Subby. It was a green Alumilite and Wormy Sycamore hybrid blank. I know you're probably thinking a lot of the green turned off and isn't very visible. It's more of a yellow now. Well, it is true. I decided not to paint the blank or the inside of the blank. I thought the green and yellow mix effect was a cool effect. So for that reason, I chose not to paint either the tube or the, the tube or the blank. I really like the way this one turned out. This will definitely be a new favorite carry pen for me. I'm not giving this one up. This one I'm really excited. I'm really excited about, and I couldn't be happier about the way it came out. It's super smooth, and I love the way it looks. I love the kit that I put it on, and this one was a treat. This one was a fun one to turn. In other news, thanks for making it this long into the video. I did end up launching a Patreon page. If you'd like to support what I do here in the shop, I also am on other social medias. I'll have those linked in the description. I'll have a link for Patreon. You know, no pressure, but if you do want to support what I'm doing, that is an option. Also, I just want to remind you guys that I do have my website up and running now, so go check out cross-cut-creations.com. I've got my store over there that you can check out some of the things that I have. I've got some t-shirts, I've got some stickers, I've got coffee mugs, so I have some merchandise. I also have some handcrafted stuff over there. Make sure you check that out, and we'll see you next time. Oh, and by the way, make sure you like, comment, share the video, subscribe to my channel, and yeah, now we'll see you next time.